Hi, I'm Rachel Fleit, the director of Introducing Selma Blair.
I always thought I was on a reality show, like I was in a documentary, but only God would see it and disapprove.
Don't worry, I know what I'm doing.
That was the onset of MS, which is just a symptom of a really unhealthy immune system. Things were going backwards. The meds were just making me feel worse. I'm sick today. The options ran out. A stem cell transplant is the thing that's gonna help me, if anything will.
Selma's got grit like nobody.
Arthur, wanna play a quick game of dodgeball?
She wants to be able to be with her son,
That was really hard.
but there's so many dangers.
You know how you called me modeling before? You ain't seen nothing yet.
I would like it to be as dramatic as I am.
I was told to make plans for dying, not because I have MS, because I'm fighting MS.
I love you,
Mama.
I promised myself I wouldn't judge the process. I've been given a second chance at life. Everything beautiful that I've known, that I've encouraged other people, will it be true for me too?
Hello, I'm Sonia Wineset, and this is an episode of Filmmaker Focus. Today we have Rachel Fleit, director of Introducing Selma Blair. Hi, Rachel. How are you?
I'm great, Sonia. It's so nice to meet you and see you.
Thank you so much for joining us. I have to say that totally fangirling you right now because I loved the film. I thought it was so powerful, intense. I could just go on and on. There were just so many things about it that I loved. So what was the initial spark for this film?
So the initial spark for the film came from Selma, and she really realized after she came out with her MS diagnosis on Instagram that she could really be of service by sharing her story with the world. And so when she decided to do the stem cell transplant, she was speaking with one of our producers, Troy Nankin, who was her lifelong manager. And they were sort of batting around this idea, like, could this be a film? Should this be a film? And then they started to look for directors that would be interested in this. And I was introduced to Selma and Troy very serendipitously by our executive producer, Cass Bird, who had just photographed Selma for Vanity Fair. And I met with Troy and Selma had been creating these video diaries. And I watched the video diaries and I said, oh, there's definitely a film here.
I'm in a ball in my bed. Everything's so blurry. This is gonna pass. This is gonna pass. And then it's gonna be like, this is having the flu.
Did you have any sort of expectation of, who she was? I mean, were you familiar with her work in the past?
Didn't really have expectations of her and what the film would be. I kind of went into it with a curiosity, which I think actually comes across on screen. I didn't know her either, right? So I had met her probably about 2 months on FaceTime before we started filming together. So the first time I met her in person was 2 days before we came in and started filming. So I was actually getting to know her with the camera rolling. So in a way, I think that also brings an immediacy to like what we're learning as we go.
And what did you know about MS prior, to meeting Selma, prior to the film?
So MS I knew was an autoimmune condition, which I have alopecia, which is also an autoimmune condition. I would call MS a disease, just in that, like, I have a feeling in my heart that my alopecia feels much more like a condition because it doesn't impact me in a physical way. It only impacts me kind of like, can you accept the fact that you're like going to be a bald woman in a world of women with hair? What I really just knew was that it was different for everyone, and that Selma was in the midst of a major flare. And I learned much more about it, but I was sort of primed in that I have this experience with my own autoimmune condition. So I understand the mystery of it. Like, we both have this thing that is kind of inexplicable, or like very inexplicable. And we have no control over it. And we have to just deal with that and accept it.
And so, because of her MS, there was sort of an element of uncertainty, right? You weren't sure how she was going to be feeling day to day. So how did that sort of shape your approach in how you were going to go down this road with her?
We never filmed too long. We would do like 2 to 4 hour blocks of filming to make sure to not like exhaust her. But Selma was a champ. I mean, like, no matter what she was dealing with on the day, when the cameras showed up, she rallied. I mean, that's the thing. She is an actress with 2+ decades of experience. So even though she was fighting something really intense, she still approached it like a professional, which was amazing.
I mean, it would have been a much different film if she hadn't been an actress, right?
Totally. I think that Selma being an actress made this whole enterprise palatable and entertaining, to be frank. Every day when I went to film with her would perform for me. It was like part of our shtick, really. It was part of her shtick. I would come in, she would, depending on her mood, she would have like some jokes she wanted to tell me. She wanted to show me something. It was like there was totally an element of play. And I realized that it was so important for her to have the cameras there during that time. She got to actually get to do her job on some level. And the doctor in the film says MS is a disease that strips you of your identity. So me as a director showing up with cameras was very comforting to Selma. She got to do her thing. And also what that provided was an opportunity in the edit to create some levity within these really intense scenes, right? So if I didn't have a subject who was ready to entertain, then I would have, 90 minutes of really intense material. And I think that, like, as human beings, especially human beings who had been sitting through and living through a terrifying and devastating global pandemic, that we had to create something that was going to not only like teach us something, make us feel something, but we wanted to laugh, we wanted to laugh in the midst of it all. And like, I come from a family like that definitely like laughs through like dark times. And so does Selma. I mean, she really does. Like, she has the darkest sense of humor and I just love it. And so I think her being an actress really did have this incredibly positive impact on the material.
You also leverage humor in your storytelling. Do you think about music scoring or how you're going to edit it as you're capturing a scene?
It's funny now that I've done introducing Selma Blair, because that was my first feature. I'm shooting 2 feature docs right now, and I'm cutting it as I'm filming. I can see it, and I think that just is something that happens over time. But I also try not to do that as well, because like I try to sort of shut that part of my brain off at times, especially when the subject matter becomes more sensitive, because my job as a documentary director is to like go out there and get the most glorious wood for the biggest, wildest fire, which I will create with my editor. And with Selma, like I felt like so much of my work was just like letting her life unfold and bearing witness to it and holding the space. And so sometimes, I think in the New York Times article that came out, she says, like, there's barely any directing, and I mean that in the best possible way. And for me, as a verite documentary director, that's like the highest compliment, because what I want is access, and I want to be a fly on the wall and let the world unfold so that we as an audience have a window into like the most precious, vulnerable moment in someone's life. With Selma, I wasn't thinking about editing. I was like, how do I get it all? I just was like, I gotta get it all. I gotta get this whole thing.
I like you.
And then I'm gonna sit with my like very frequent, incredibly brilliant collaborator, Sloane Clevin, my editor on this project. And she knows my style by now. And, from there we found the humor. And I got to collaborate with Raphael Thibault, who is this incredible French chic neoclassical pianist. I always felt like the score for Selma, we talked about this early on, like Selma is such a graceful, elegant woman. She's also hilariously funny. And so my goal in like sort of capturing it all is to show who I believe this woman is, right? And you get to do that with music. You get to really like sort of hold the whole person with that sound, and add that layer and show the parts that maybe we don't see on screen, like get to come out in the score. And I think one of my greatest achievements of this film is I got to show the world how funny Selma is. I don't know that all of her roles show her comedy. Some of them definitely do, but she's hilarious. And so that was my total joy.
In the first 10 minutes of the film, we see Selma's in the red chair and she's holding her dog, and the dog jumps off her lap at one point, and very quickly her speed just changes, and very dramatically, and she's powerless to the MS. And so I really felt that set up the film. I give credit to Sloane, my editor, Sloane Clevin, for finding that as our entry point. One of the best things as a director, like I don't believe ever that sometimes I think I have the best idea in the room, but I really do rely on my collaborators, and I love like seeing their perspective. Like I give very few notes to my editor and my composer before we go in. So when I finished filming, I maybe 50% of the movie, Sloane received the footage, and she saw that and she tried it. She cut the first 8 minutes of the film, and I have to tell you, like, it was so clear. She was like, "This is, I think, the beginning." And we never touched those 8 minutes since she cut them, because it was perfect. It was absolutely like, it was my movie. I felt it in my heart. I was like, this is, yes, yes, yes. And I felt like it was the perfect way to show our subject and what she was up against.
I'm just gonna be a better person. And I hope when I feel better, I really do hope to be a better person. Like that's all I care about now. And if something as simple as using a cane, which I never minded, because to me it's like, well, it's useful, but it's a really cool prop. When I heard on Instagram, because that's how you communicate with the world these days, you know, so many people were like, you've done so much for me, and now I can go out and I'll go and use this and not be ashamed. And I'm like, wait, hold on, like, don't get like a hideous one. Like go like Google chic canes at least, you know, because you can still get a $20 cane on Amazon that's like bejeweled and looks good from far away. There's a good way to do it. I would like to be their fashion voice. Like I always say, I say it so much now, it's annoying, it's my motto, but we have a long time to be dead, and I spent so long trying to kill myself or numb myself or check out or figure out how to be alive by being half dead. And now I just want to help other people feel better. And if I represent in some way people with an illness or like speech problem or movement disorder, then, you know, more you take, even without my comfort dog now, like now my fatigue happens. And then no, that's not my, oh. Well, this is what happened. That I will see that once I get really uncomfortable, but I'm not uncomfortable with you or anything. That's what people don't understand. And I'm better if I'm brought in. Then I gotta laugh. Look at how I'm dressed. I'm taking away my stimulus, so I shut my eyes. 'Cause there's only so much, and it happens that fast.
I know that, you know, you didn't know her beforehand, but obviously during the process of making this film, you can't help but get close with your subject. Like, how were you able to sort of maintain that boundary between filmmaker and subject, you know, especially like, you know, in those times that she's just breaking down and she's in so much pain? Like, how did you sort of navigate your way around that?
So I like pretty much knew early on that I needed to keep like an emotional distance between us and that it was going to be better for the film. For example, if I didn't text message her all the time when I wasn't with her. And it was like intentional because I knew that if I had too much access to her emotional life, that it would become diluted for the footage. So, for example, I would leave her in Chicago and I would come back 10 days later and I would like give her a hug and a kiss when I left, and then I wouldn't speak to her. And then I would, you know, text her and say like, we're here 10 days later. And then once the camera was set up and she was mic'd, I would say like, okay, so like what's been going on? And that was so much better, and I think much more generous for the viewer of this movie. so that they were learning in real time the way that I was learning in real time, like what had happened. And I also feel like that's part of my process. I get very protective of my subjects, and I don't like for there to be like small talk or even big talk between my crew and my subjects. And maybe that seems like kind of controlling, but it is part of what I'm going for as a director that creates verite. Because by the time, if you tell the story to like the DP and the sound person and the producer, by the time I'm ready to like capture that, it's like, it's diluted. It's like lost its tension. And so I feel really strongly about that way of working. And I did that with Selma, and I think it worked.
So I want to talk about the scene when Arthur cuts Selma's hair. I mean, it's a heart-wrenching moment, but somehow the way that you shot it and edited it just made it a really tender moment between mother and son. And then later on down the line, we see a hospital technician shaving her head. And it was clinical, she's getting ready to have the transplant. And was that a deliberate juxtaposition that you had these two haircut scenes or shaving scenes, or was it just serendipitous?
To me, those two scenes have they represent two different emotional beats in the film. Selma lets Arthur cut her hair because it's going to make him feel like he has some control and power in a situation where no one has any control and power, and to make him feel better about what's about to happen to his mother. But I actually love the clinical scene because to me, it's like, it feels like she is like a warrior about to go on a battle. And she's like preparing her body for like a war. It just feels so serious. And to me, it's like she's giving this to Arthur. And then in that other head shaving scene, it's about to get real. Like it's really real. And so those two different sort of emotional beats on her journey are so important.
The film explores really complex issues from ranging from the beauty myths to collective fear around disability and mortality. And can you talk a little bit about that?
Well, I'm so glad that you brought that up because it makes me feel like I did my job. I did write a pitch for this film. I did prepare what my vision would be. And those were the two main things that I wanted to show. Because I'm pretty obsessed with the beauty myth. I think that I have a unique perspective on what it means to be a woman in the world, having walked around without any hair for my whole life. And so my own journey with my own beauty and my own femininity and all of that has been central to my experience, but also shows up in every story that I create. And it's something I really care deeply about and I feel uniquely qualified to discuss. And with that same note, I do believe that people really do shy away from disability everywhere in the world. I had to confront my own ableism making this film with my act 3 desire that Selma was going to run off into the sunset after her stem cell transplant. And it's no. That's not what this is about. And in the work that I do, I want to be look at it. Don't look away. This is real. And this is a way that a person is living.
I thought I'd be walking when I came back to my house. I wanted overnight. It didn't happen. And all I want to do is see Arthur. And I'm afraid I'll scare him. I'm a really positive person. It's been a hard couple days. I'm a really positive person. to see my son, I'll be happy. Now I know that he can live with his dad. I don't feel like I have to hold on to anything anymore. Now that I don't feel better. I'm sorry.
And I do say, like, I want to make movies about a different way of being in the world. And I see that people ask me all the time, like, how's Selma doing? And I can see able-bodied people, and I can see that they want me to tell them that she is better and more like them. And I don't say that ever. I say, like, Selma's doing the best she can. She has good days and she has bad days, just like the rest of us. Because A, I can't speak for another person, but B, it's like, no, like, this is okay. It's okay to be however you are in the world.
So I want to talk about this scene, when Selma is about to go get her stem cell transplant, and you're blessing the stem cells. And I think that's your hand that comes out. So can you talk about that?
When Selma went into isolation at the hospital, we weren't allowed to have a camera crew in. So I had to rely on the iPhone. So when I was there, I would film on the iPhone. When I wasn't there, I gave specific direction to whoever was visiting with her. Her assistant, Bonnie, Troy, other friends and family that were there to visit, I would ask them to film certain things for me. For the stem cell transplant, I was the only person there. And I was, outside of the medical team. And I was filming with my iPhone. And, the stem cell day was the most vulnerable I've ever seen Selma. And it was like a really special day. It was like all the guard was down. There was no performance. There was no shtick. We were not like joking and laughing. It was very serious, but also very sweet and dear and honest and real. And I just had one shot. You can't ask the nurses to redo the stem cell transplant because you didn't get it the first time. But I didn't know that the chaplain was going to come in. I didn't know that she was going to pray over these stem cells. And so everything was like, with that moment, it was magic. And it was really like movie magic. I still feel like that day really bonded me and Selma for life.
One of my favorite scenes is when she puts on her mom's Merlin the Magician dress, and she's just getting ready, and then she takes us outside and she gets in the pool in the dress.
Her pool was being refinished, and I saw a metaphor there. And so when I came to see her, Troy, I think, made a joke like, "Oh, we forgot to tell you that we ripped up your set." And I was like, "What?" And I went into the backyard and I saw that the pool had been completely dug out. And the pool had become a character in the film because she had, jumped into that pool early on in our filming and told us a very intimate story of her, the airplane incident and her getting sober. And, but then I was like, oh, is it going to get fixed? Is it being finished? And they said yes. And I said, can we, film that? And everyone sort of looked at me strangely, like, you want to film the pool being plastered? Because we discussed that her pool was like her brain, and she talks about that at the end of the film, and it's being refinished and being filled with new water and new life. And so I just saw it was such a beautiful metaphor that we had to capture. So I knew I wanted her to get into that water and her new life. But she very much decided to put on that dress for me. That was her decision. I wasn't like, can you put on a dress? Can you put on a fabulous YSL dress and jump in the pool? It was very much like that first day when when I said to her, I want to interview you. And she was like, well, I have to get dressed for my interview. And of course, we filmed that, and we filmed her getting into her mother's YSL dress in a very similar manner. And then it just was like the magic that existed between Selma and I. And I had multiple camera angles that day, including an underwater camera. And I was like, we spent a lot of time in the pool that day.
What are you taking away from it? Like, what are you going to apply moving forward to your other films?
So Selma set the bar very high because I had this experience with a person who had many years of experience in front of a camera, but also was like deeply vulnerable and ready to be like raw and real and honest. But it also sort of set my internal bar where I want it to be, really, because I don't want to make anything less than that. I don't want to make anything that is less authentic, real, raw, and honest than that film. And so with my subjects currently, like, my most important work is to get to the emotional core and to create a relationship that's, where there's lots of trust and respect and admiration, so that I can sort of retrieve the same level of honesty from everyone that I work with. That's the biggest thing that I learned sort of from like a subject and director relationship, how to build the trust between me and this other person so that they tell me the truth. And then also just stamina, like very practical things. In order to make verite documentaries, you have to be in like really good physical shape, especially when you're working with teenagers, because they go out very late at night. And so like taking care of myself is like actually one of the most important things that I can do as a director, because it's long days and it's long hours, and the style of filmmaking that I find to be so thrilling is verite. So I have to be up, and I have to be present, and I have to go the distance in order to get the access to create the story that you all want to see. So
what do you think makes you unique from other filmmakers?
I have always had an ability to put people at ease, which just works out really well if you're a film director. I do think that that is something that is sort of like innate, and it's a gift that I have for sure. And like, I think many people have empathy. I think I have like a next level empathy. But I also think this is an interesting idea. I'm just going to throw out there, but I was thinking about it when you were asking me about the stem cell scene. I do think I have a unique ability to be like extremely like present and like hold the space for another person, while at the same time in some part of my brain thinking about like the larger picture, and also the ability to sort of separate myself completely from the entire scene so that I can like do what I need to do. And so I think, I don't know what that is, but I think that that might just be my unique ability. And yeah, I guess my style is that I joke with my agent that I'm a method verite director, in that I completely immerse myself in the world and I become one of them. So I did that with Selma. I enmeshed myself and I became, part of her little family.
A last question. When did you know the film was finished?
Oh, I knew the film was finished when Selma jumped into the pool in the Merlin the Magician dress. I knew it. It was done. I was done. I was absolutely done. I said, we're done. I said it. I was like, that's a wrap. And I knew it. I was so confident going back to New York. I said, I've got it. We've got it in the can. There was no more story to tell. Because, I mean, listen, every time I see Selma, I'm like, ugh, where's my camera? We got to keep filming. Maybe we'll make a sequel. She's endlessly fascinating, that woman. And so dear and so lovely, and a heart of gold and the most generous spirit. I mean, I love her forever.